Well, hello and welcome to another edition of Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham, where Team Needham discusses everything healthcare. I'm your host, Shawn Needham, and I am streaming live from the Moses Lake Professional Pharmacy Studio today. And I am super excited to have Matt Maiwald on our podcast today. My brother was kind enough to introduce me to him. He is actually my brother's bodybuilding, health and fitness coach. And I am super excited to have Matt on today. We're going to be discussing dad bods, which is a term I absolutely despise. And there's no reason we should ever have a dad bod. And Matt's going to be talking about that. And we're going to be talking about something that's probably not very politically correct, but it's just truth. And I see it all the time in my practice. And I talk to people about it all the time. Fat parents equal fat kids. So if you want your kids to be fat, then you can be fat, because that's what they do. They follow you. And I can say this because I was guilty of this. Over 10 years ago, I was 60 pounds heavier and obese. And guess what? I had an obese son also. Well, guess what? Now I turned that around, and he didn't turn his life around until I turned mine around. And now my son is almost 21 years old, and he is fit as ever. He lifts 6 days a week. He weighs his food. He eats very clean. And I can say that if I didn't turn my life around and I was obese and his mom and dad didn't change their lives, my son would probably still be fat. So that's what we're going to be talking about. So Matt, without further ado, welcome to our show.
Hey, Shawn, thank you.
So Matt, tell us, we're talking a little bit before the show. We're talking a little bit about your backstory. Tell us a little bit about your backstory and how you got into health and fitness.
So I got into weightlifting when I was about 12. I just on the neighbor's back porch with some broken weights. We started lifting weights, and it was a good release, before I started playing sports, before I started playing really contact sports like football. And so that was my intro into weights was an outlet. It was never about trying to get the most muscle and just get jacked. It was I just needed that outlet, that physical outlet, and that kind of grew and went on. I was really an advocate of weightlifting over myself, lifted a lot in high school, and went on to play college football and stuff like that. But shortly after college, I was 20, just had turned 23. I just had my twin sons. They were a week old. And I went into the hospital because I had good trouble breathing. My head was swollen up like a big old watermelon. And I went in and got x-rays, and they diagnosed me with pneumonia. My ex-wife at the time went home, left, so they're going to admit me, and she needed to be able to take care of the twins. But what ended up happening was about an hour later, the doctor had came back and told me that that was not pneumonia that they threw up on the x-ray. That was a tumor. They didn't know if it was malignant or benign at the time, but I had to be admitted to surgeries as soon as possible. And that was about 12 hours later. So I had this huge kind of health scare for about 10 months. It ended up being cancerous. It was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So I went through all that chemotherapy, my own stem cell transplant. And so then that was it was a huge kind of setback, or not necessarily a setback, I say, but a big blow to somebody that's always been physically super healthy. I never had any issues, was super strong. So I had to figure out how to come back from that.
Well, that's a very inspiring story, Matt. And I mean, you are proof that you can thrive after some kind of diagnosis like that. And I got to think too that part of the reason that you're able to come through it so well is because you were healthy beforehand. Is that correct?
Yeah, I do. I believe so. Yeah. I was a big healthy guy, and that was part of the reason why I was able to go through chemo. And I lost some weight, like a lot of people do. But then I actually ballooned back up from the other drugs, prednisone. So, I lost a lot of muscle, but I was young too. Again, when somebody's very old and they have this and they lose a lot. They'll lose a tremendous amount of weight, and waste away, and they can, that can be the end of them from that.
Right.
But like really for me, for what I found in my journey through this, it was my sons and my daughter. So like them and having a bigger purpose and something to focus on, especially with the boys being, fresh, a week old, and they had their their episode of like this high risk pregnancy, which I had no idea even existed before, in this thing called twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome. So we went through like this huge ordeal with them with like a surgery in utero, that we actually did it was experimental at the time. And we were lucky enough we were at one of the 4 places in the nation that did it, and we were close enough to San Francisco, and we had that done. That's a whole nother story, but that having them and that purpose, just kept me preoccupied. I didn't think about the other option. It wasn't like wasn't there.
Yeah, I get it. And being a father myself, I mean, it really puts a purpose in your life for sure. And speaking of your twin sons, let's just show this picture of them. Let me see if I can scroll that up a little bit. So you just posted this picture recently of you and are those your twin sons, I'm assuming?
Yeah. These are like tall as me now.
Yeah, right? It's interesting. So one of them's quite a bit taller than the other one.
It's all angles, brother. Like we're like,
is it really? Okay, right. I'm just checking.
I know. It's like
being a twin myself. Shane and I are pretty close in height, so.
Yeah, no, they're the exact same height. They're identical twins. The reason we know that is because of that whole ordeal they went through. That's how I found out. Even before they were born, they're identical.
Yeah.
They look pretty much. They're very much alike.
Yeah. So tell us about this photo and this Instagram post that you did. It was very intriguing to me. I loved it. You laid out some truths about that. How many kids nowadays with their father can take their shirts off and be seen in a public post like that? That's kind of what you said in the post. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just times have changed, and it's been acceptable to be, heavier, but it's really like it's not healthy. You're not living your best life. Fitness is something that we all enjoy. And there's so many benefits to it. We're basically in that post, talk about how like parents, you're the leader of your kids. You're the one showing them the path in life and leading them. So, and also too, like when your kids are little, where are they gonna get the food from? They're gonna get it from you. So, there's a lot of factors that go into this stuff. People have to get like economic factors. People have, sometimes people use that excuse, but you got to figure it out, right? And there's ways to figure things out to eat, economically that are still nutritious, right? And what nutritious means is basically that foods have nutrients in them that are not just empty calories, and that's kind of the problem, is that people eat a lot of foods that have empty calories. There's never nutrients in them. So then your body is looking for nutrients. It's going to keep looking for those. So you're going to keep having these hunger cravings and things like that. And generally, typically most foods people are eating are prepackaged and, carbohydrate and fat laden. So, you're combining two energy sources. And I've, along my journey as fitness coach and, myself, I found that unless you're an ectomorph, which is there's the three somatotypes, body types, ectomorph meaning someone that is very thin set, burns calories, eats the whole pizza, doesn't gain an ounce, loses a pound, right? Everybody else, like the heavy set people, hate them, right? But those, sorry, I got off on the tangent there. Unless you're like, an ectomorphic person and you're eating the bulk majority of regular foods that people are eating too, like these processed foods, you're generally going to become obese. That's why, what's the percentage of obesity rate? Is it 30 something, 40 something?
No, it depends on how you measure it. but it's well over 50% now. You know, depending on how you measure it, whether you measure on BMI or, you know, body composition, which there's an argument about that because, as you know, being a bodybuilder, even myself, if you look at BMI, you and I are both, you know, obese based on BMI.
Yeah.
You know,
BMI was set up like 1930 something, 37
yeah.
something.
And so I think what we have to do is, I think what you have to do, honestly, Matt, is just like your post alluded to. I mean, just look around us. I mean, you know, go to the pool on a weekend in the summer, or go to a beach in Miami, and you look around based on, you know, pictures from the 70s versus based on now. You know, half our population is obese. You know, it's an epidemic, and
you can't be ignorant anymore. The thing is, you could basically eat regular type food. The thing is, the food options back then were different, and they weren't as heavily laden with preservatives and other things like that. I mean, I know people that come from other countries that eat the same foods that in other countries, South Africa, things like that, come over here and they gain 20 pounds, you know, and they're eating the same foods, and the foods are actually different. The companies actually have different ingredients in the foods, you know. But the thing is, like, there was more home cooked meals. There was a different time period in the world, you know. There's the fast pace. There's the amount of seed oils in foods, you know, corn, all the inflammatory stuff in foods, you know. These are like food items, really. Like, you know, a lot of people don't even really eat food. If you really like break it down and look at it, you know, who eats like just, you know, some steak and sweet potato, some broccoli, you know. They're eating some type of processed meals generally, and they don't understand even what's in them. You know what I mean? Like, people are sold on all the marketing nowadays.
Well, and I think what we should focus on, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit, is real food. You know, back in the 70s, we were eating real food. And if you eat real steak, real chicken, even real potatoes, I mean, carbs get a bad rap, but, you know, if you're eating a real baked potato, I think it's pretty tough to eat too much, you know, especially if you're eating the whole potato. Now, if you're eating, you know, French fries, you know, deep fried French fries, cut up potatoes out the skin, basically, then yeah, it's a little bit easier to overeat. And obesity is the real epidemic in America, and it is the most dangerous thing you can do as an American. There is not a more dangerous thing to do than to be obese. Obesity-related disease kills more Americans than anything, and that's from cardiovascular disease, diabetes, all kinds of problems that obesity cause. Not to mention just not feeling your best and your most optimal. And I think as parents, I think it is our duty to teach our kids how to eat right, how to exercise right, how to sleep right, how to just live a healthy life. So I appreciate you for coming out and talking about these things. What would you call a dad bod, Matt? Explain what a dad bod is.
Well, it's there's the lack of muscle. There's the belly hanging over your belt line, you know, and your sloping shoulders, and like, you know, you don't want to take your shirt off, and it's like you're not proud of your physique, really. Like when people like slap their belly, so I worked on this hard. No, you didn't. And the thing is, like, too, like, besides like the dad bod, you know, physique is like one thing. I really like try not to get so caught up on that. I know I've done bodybuilding and all that crap, but it's like really, it's the focal point of like, it makes me do these certain things that are hard, you know, and I like the hard work about it as well. I never really associate myself as a bodybuilder. So like besides the fact of the dad bod, it's like, hey, you know, you're going to build self-confidence, and by doing the hard things, you're going to be fitter, healthier. If you have kids, you're going to be able to do more things with them. Right. You know, hopefully do more sports with them. Hopefully you get them active. Nobody says, hey, I want my kid to be, you know, 50 pounds overweight on insulin and on fucking, you know, metformin and you know, on a high blood pressure medication, and on a pardon my French, you know, what's the other thing? Look, statin, you know, and those things are horrible for your body, right? And so, like, why would you do that to yourself, you know? And your kids are seeing that. And also, too, if you're the parent of young kids, you're the one giving them the food, right? So, like, if you're eating the donuts, they're eating the donuts. And it's a carnal pleasure, really. So, like, it gets back to, like, hey, you know what? Stop eating the donut. Get up and do a 30 fucking minute walk in the morning. Drink 30 ounces of water. Walk 30 minutes. You know, eat, like, portion sizes of real food. Like we said, I guarantee you, I guarantee you, if you eat just real food, no butters, no sauces, no bullshit, no nothing other, no olive oils, no oils, nothing like that. Just beef, rice, chicken, vegetables, sweet potatoes. Eat as much as you can of those things. No added bullshit, right? You guarantee you'll still lose weight. Like,
well, absolutely. Here's what I tell people that are, I mean, the simplest diet of all is the carnivore diet. And that means all red meat in general. Because I've never heard of anybody being allergic to red meat. It's very non-inflammatory. And I just dare anybody to eat. If all they eat is just plain red meat, I dare them to eat too much.
No, I've had a couple friends, close acquaintances that have done it, and they had phenomenal results. And I have a little funny story. I was down in Southern California on the vacation, and I was walking on the beach, and this really tall guy was walking his dog with his daughter, and I was like, man, the guy kind of looks familiar. As I get closer, I'm like, that guy looks real familiar. And as he walks up, I'm like, hey, are you Dr. Shawn Baker? And he's like, yes, I am. So I know the carnivore diet. Yeah, one of the biggest, proponents of that. Yeah, really cool dude. Spend a couple, 5-10 minutes talking on the beach. It's cool.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of interviewing him on our podcast. Oh gosh, it would have been about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
He lives in Washington State now. He lives on the west side, and I don't usually get over there, but I'd like to, actually meet him in person. Yeah, big proponent of the carnivore diet. Everybody look him up. Shawn Baker was on Joe Rogan podcast probably 6 or 7 years ago. He's been carnivore for over 7 years now, and he's 56 years old. He's ripped. He's in great shape, best shape of his life. I think another thing it talks, that we can talk about, Matt, with that is that, when I grew up in the 70s and 80s, red meat was vilified, and it's still vilified now from traditional doctors, which are just ignorant. And I had a doctor yesterday tell a guy that he should stop eating red meat, and his wife asked me what I thought. I'm like, that's the most ignorant thing I've ever heard of in my life. I mean, seriously.
So, yeah. If I had one thing only to eat for the rest of my life, it would be red meat.
That's me.
Because it has the most nutrients. It's going to give you everything you need. You're going to be strong. You're going to be, have vitality. You're going to get everything you need. My base diet right now is, sometimes I don't get it all in because of my schedule, my kids and everything else and shit. And sometimes I just don't have the appetite. I just don't want to stop and eat. I'm just like, I got to get this other stuff done. Is 3 pounds raw. I cook it, obviously. 3 pounds raw of 96.4 beef a day. Like, beef is where it's at, dude. I don't care.
Right.
It's not, okay, yeah. If you eat a Burger King patty or a McDonald's patty with trans fats and shit, yeah, you're lowering testosterone, you're fucking your heart up, your cholesterol levels are all getting out of whack. If you're eating real beef, and you don't have to trip on it as long as it's not like some just crud. And the thing is, I eat lean beef. I'm eating the 96.4 Trader Joe's is one I go to because it's nationwide, and wherever I go, I can find it. And so, like, the thing is, too, is, like, you need saturated fats. You need them for your hormone, especially if you're natural, you need them for hormone production. Like cholesterol you need. People are always like, tripping on their cholesterol. I'm like, okay, go have a cholesterol-free diet, have a non-hormone environment in your body where you can't produce any hormones and you feel like shit. Right. And the thing is, like, so I argued with my teacher in college in nutrition, and it wasn't like, it was because of the food pyramid. And when we talked about protein intake, we're talking about, it's 0.8 grams per pound of body weight, or it was a kilo. So it was like, I was supposed to be eating like 88 grams of protein. I told her I was like eating like 350, something like that, ballpark. And she's like, oh my God. I'm like, and I wasn't trying to be a dick, but like, I was also like, yo, I'm 245-pound college football player kid. And I'm like, not fat,
Yeah.
like you're a 300-pound. I didn't say it, but I'm like, yo, you're 300-pound, 5'2" nutrition teacher preaching. I was like, so what's our obesity rate risen since we instilled this new food guide, the new food pyramid? And she's like, well, a tremendous amount. I'm like, okay, can we just stop then arguing about this right now? Like,
yeah. Well, and here's the thing, in our society, a lot of times the people that are teaching nutrition, I mean, they're the worst role models. I mean, just like what you're talking about. But we see it in healthcare all the time. Registered dietitians, notoriously in hospital type systems, I mean, they are obese. And it's like, you want me to listen to what you've got to say? Look at you. I mean, seriously. I mean, and we just got to call those things out. And it's not fat shaming. I mean, we're saying it because we love people. I mean, I don't want people to be obese. It is dangerous. It is unhealthy. But we have to really stop kicking the can down the road and just admit what's causing it.
It's a lesser quality of life.
Absolutely.
Right. I've been fatter. I got sick and I was like ballooned up to, I know it's not like insanity, but like 265 for me, and I was like fat because it was like lost all my muscle from the chemo, and I was like trying to, I got pictures and I look like a Michelin man, and my face looks, looks like I'm somewhere inside there.
Yeah.
And it was suck to tie your shoes, and it sucks to get out of your car, and it sucks to do a lot of things, and like physical things, and like even like sex, like that's another thing. Back to carnal pleasures, like stop eating an extra piece of pie. Do some exercise, you can just go out and walk, and then like hook up with your wife after you lose 20 pounds, like shit, because like you won't be wanting those things, like, you know what I mean? Like, don't rely on this crap for your carnal pleasures. Like, be fitter, be healthier, like have a better life, be a better parent, because you're showing your kids like they're going to be healthier. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
My kids, I never forced anything on them. I never had to. And everyone's like, you guys need to eat this. And the thing is, like, my kids are they're metabolically right now, they've got fast metabolisms, right? So the way that I look at food as there's not clean or dirty, like people that are clean, dirty. It's like, it's processed or unprocessed.
Yeah.
And to the, magnitude, it can be more processed. And basically that means like saying something like rice, like regular rice, you cook rice and you eat it, right? And then you can break it down a little way to cream of rice, And so the assimilation rate would be assumed to be faster through the gut because it's mechanically broken down more already, right? So it's easy to digest, things like that. So like with my boys, they eat a lot of different things that people wouldn't say are necessarily healthy, but they also need those extra calories because they're trying to gain a certain amount of mass. Right. And yeah, so it comes back to getting the nutrients in, but then also getting in the additional calories.
Enough calories, right? Well,
right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, so and I mean, kind of like going back to like the beef, when we were talking about that, like I don't only just eat beef because of like, oh, it's the protein. I digest it so damn well. Like I process beef and rice so well. I don't have any issues. My stomach doesn't hurt. Now I'm like 40 years old. I've had like a bunch of you start getting stomach issues. Like as you go through prep, chicken gives me fucking heartburn like you wouldn't believe. I don't know why, And so like it digests it well. It makes it, I can just, my whole like day runs better because of the food choices,
Absolutely. And let's talk about you kind of alluded to a little bit with our society and maybe the economy of food. And often we talk about how it's so expensive to eat healthy, and it's a lot cheaper to eat processed junk food. And I don't buy it. I don't buy it whatsoever. And I've done many, many videos on this to show the pricing of, eating at McDonald's versus, eating broccoli, potatoes, and a chicken breast. That is way more nutritious and less expensive. And, anymore with fast food, let's face it. I mean, McDonald's burger is, I don't know, $4 or something, but nobody orders just a burger. They usually get out of there with a supersized meal, and they're spending $12 for fast food. Well, you're talking about ground beef and rice you're talking about a few dollars of food with ground beef and rice, correct?
Yeah. The thing is, it's the prep.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Absolutely. It takes time.
I get it. Like, I get it. People, like, I've been there, been dad, like, been in a relationship, had a significant other, had kids, too, as well. Been, like, by myself, with my kids, as I'm now. And there's a lot of prep, so you make the shit easy as possible. Like I said, I have a big skillet. I cook 3 pounds of ground beef in one skillet at one time. Takes, 15, 20 minutes. I buy the Trader Joe's microwavable jasmine rice packs because I can microwave them, and then I can split them into halves, or I can eat them depending on what my carbohydrate intake is at the time. Simple. I know it's 80 grams of carbs in the bag. I can split up however I want. I keep my stuff so simple I don't have to think about it, because the life is complicated, and you're going to have all these moving pieces, right? Especially if you have kids, you're going to have a lot more moving pieces. And the less moving pieces you can have in your nutrition to where you're fueling your vehicle. That's like the people don't fucking understand, bro. You're going to spend a bunch of money on a nice car, right? And you're going to take care of that son of a bitch, and you're going to make sure the oil's changed, and you're going to make sure tires rotated, and you're going to, right? And you're parking in the garage, but you can always trade that thing in. And you can always get another one. And it's not linked to you, Right. What your body is, and this is what you're driving around.
It's all we've got.
Right? So, like, you don't have to get complicated. People think, like, if you make food a fuel source, it doesn't mean that it has to taste shitty. I love the way my food tastes. I season it, well. I tell my clients, we're going to make your food taste good. Obviously, we're not going to put a bunch of barbecue sauce and other stuff that adds calories, we're very specific on that. But anything that we can add, spices, seasonings, things like that, hot sauces that are very low calorie to no calorie, yes, we're going to add those things to make your food like you look forward to those meals. I look forward to my meals. I would rather eat my meals than go out and eat most meals, because I don't know what I'm going to get unless places, And like 8, 9 times out of 10, I'd rather eat my meal than go the meal I ate out, right? And so,
I think one thing too, Matt, as we start to eat healthier, I think your palate changes. I mean, still the favorite food of that'll probably be for the rest of my life is a ribeye. I'm not a big fan of lean meat. I like the fat, and as long as I can burn those calories, I'm okay with that. But I look forward to eating a ribeye. I mean, and if you don't need a lot of barbecue sauce and stuff like that on a good ribeye, if you cook it right, and you're just looking for that kind of satisfaction. You're not looking for that sugar high.
Right, because you're getting the fat high.
Yeah, right. Oh, sure.
And I'm sure you're putting a little salt on it, so you get that salt, the fat.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And the protein, because those are the things that are rare to find in nature, right? And that's why your brain... people's brains are programmed to go find sweet, salty fat, right? Because those weren't very common if you're a hunter-gatherer back to that point in time, right? And so, you have to train your brain, like, to be like, yo, I'm not going to just, like, I love Zig Ziglar. You know who that is?
Yeah, oh, yeah, of course.
Great. Yeah. So if people don't know, you got to go get some Zig in your life. But, like, he said, I chose to be over 200 pounds for like 24 years of my adult life, right? And the reason I chose to be is because I never accidentally ate anything, right?
Right.
So nobody like takes something and shoves it in your mouth, and if somebody is like, okay, like whatever. But the thing is, like, really with a kid though, that's kind of the situation. When you're a young kid, you don't have any other options. You're getting eat what your parents put in front of you, So yeah, but that really goes back to the, it's your choice. What are you eating?
Well,
and and sometimes people can't make that decision for themselves because they don't feel they're worthy of it. Is there some shit inside, right? But if you're a parent, like this is where I, pull the parent card on you, because like it's, if you're a parent, you love your kids, it's gonna get you. So you say, hey, you're sacrificing your health and your overall fitness to not be here, and your longevity of your life, to not be here for these kids that you so much you love, right? Like, why don't you be a better example for them? Why don't you have, take care of yourself, have more energy, be stronger for them in case you have to protect them. That's some shit that might happen. You know what I mean? To be physically capable to protect yourself or your children.
Yeah, it's our duty, and that's why I like talking about it. And I think it needs to be talked about. It is our duty to be good role models for our kids and make sure that we feed them right. Here's the thing: like in our house, I mean, I can eat junk food, and I can eat a lot of junk food. So we just don't buy it because I would eat it. But if it's not in your house, you don't eat it. And I think as a parent, that's a good tip to just don't put that stuff in your house. Your kids won't eat it. And in general, that goes for healthy snacks. I mean, I'm not a big snack guy. I think that we get too hung up on snacks. Now, I get it. There are healthy snacks, maybe almonds or, maybe beef jerky or something like that. But in general, we don't, if you eat well enough, you can probably eat one meal a day. That's what Sean Baker does. That's pretty much what I do. I just eat beef and eat a lot of it, and I'm satisfied for 24 hours. So you don't need a lot of snacking in between, depending on your workouts and your lifestyle. But
yeah, 100%. I think depending on the individual, right? You can, if over time, if you're paying attention to what you're doing, you will find or you get a coach, and you structure your meals around your life, you'll find where that fits in.
Yeah.
Because I coach your brother, and obviously during bodybuilding prep, which is get peeled to the bone, and your brother has to work very hard for that. He works very hard. He's my hardest probably worker. I know that he doesn't veer off the plan. He's like a true savage. But eating 6 to 8 meals a day. Because the meals were small to assimilate, keeping protein always, available to the body. So we're not going catabolic.
Yep.
Those were the ideas, processes there. It's not, with the 1 meal a day, it's more of like a longevity with having the fasting periods and things like that. So, and now with your brother, we have him eat, I think he's in a 6 to 8 hour window right now. So we're kind of doing intermittent fasting with him as well. So, I mean, It just depends on the individual. Obviously, I do a lot of different modalities. I don't have one way to, it's not one way to skin a cat.
It's got to be individualized. Everybody's diet's got to be individualized. And I try to give people different options about what's worked for me, what's worked for other people, depending on their lifestyle. And you got to find out what works for you. Ultimately, eat real food. Stay away from the processed stuff. Speaking of that, I was in a store the other day. I was in a gas station getting gas, and I was getting one of my vices is protein bars. I know they're not always the best, but sometimes when I just need a little bit extra protein, I'll go in and I'll get a protein bar. And I was getting a protein bar, and there was this, I assume mother, and she had 2 kids. I assume that they were her kids. And these kids were pulling food off the shelves. One of them was probably less than 3 years old. He had a box of Pringles, the potato chips, and then he had some kind of candy bar in his hand. And he came over to take it to his mom so she would buy it for him. And I just think, I mean, she's letting the kids do the shopping, and that's just, of course, I got, they learned that from somebody. Obviously, right? I mean,
right. They knew that. They already knew what was in those boxes and in that bag.
Exactly.
And the thing is, like I said, back to sweet, salty fat. And if you go to the primal brain and you just let the primal, be the primal man, no, you're not a man, sorry, you're just a primal animal. That's what you'll do. If you want to take control of your life, you have to take ownership. The thing is, it's not okay to be ignorant anymore. The thing is, you don't live in the same period as your grandparents, as far as the food, the nutrients that are coming into our body, right? I tell guys this because a lot of guys understand a construction analogy, and too, we understand the body is our temple, right? And so it's a temple that's being built and torn down 365, 24/7.
Yep.
So, and the lumber that is being utilized is your food. It's things you're ingesting, right? That's your lumber. Things you're ingesting through your mouth, basically, and how it's broken down. Protein is the wood. So if you want to build new structure of actual tissue, you need protein. That's why protein is the most expensive macronutrient. That's why it's the hardest to get. That's why they're trying to go to vegan. And this, man, dude, don't even start with Beyond Meat beef stuff. I picked up a thing of it, just looking at the back of the ingredients, right? You look at the back ingredients. I had a type of fatty acid, de-esterified, esterified fat. I was like, what? I've never even heard of that. Had to look it up. Just as bad as trans fat. I'm like, okay, so you're selling a trans fat. You had to put trans fat into the grocery store now. No, I don't have to go to Burger King or McDonald's to get my trans fat. I can just buy some fake ass meat, some ground up vegetables, and they add it to it.
Well, and let's face it. I mean, anytime you've got to make something to mimic something else in food, I mean,
but you don't need to add in a trans fat, something that has the same effects as a trans fat. That's a toxin. You already know that.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like you're putting it into something that people are consuming. Like, that's shame on you, bro. I'm sorry. Like, no.
And you got to wonder their motive. I mean, seriously.
What is the motive? Their motive is to make people sick. Like, if you want people to be strong, you tell them to eat meat. Like, I'm sorry. Like, it's not about like, I understand if you're against it because it's what's the term I'm looking for here? Like, you're against your heart. Like, you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But like, as far as nutrition wise and like building up a strong human body, it's proven, and you can't deny it. You can look at the bones, bones of carnivores versus vegans. Like my ex-girlfriend, when she got her boobs done, the doc's like, yo, you're not vegan, right? He's like, so I won't operate on you. And like, what? I'm like, yeah, because your scarring won't heal correctly.
You won't.
And
you
so,
don't
like,
have
the dude had a chick, her implant fell out, just fell out of the incision because she's a vegan. She's
yeah.
And like, everybody tries to say, look, you can get a lot of protein in this and that and the other thing. I'm like, protein in peanuts, like, they're like a protein source. I'm like, you're gonna get like 85% fat, like 70-something% fat, whatever it is. It's these aren't protein sources.
Not the same.
And that's why protein is the most expensive macronutrient, followed by non-inflammatory fatty acids and healthy fats. Like the virgin coconut oil and stuff like that. But though you look at the cost of things and like you look at what it costs the most, and they generally have the most nutrients. But yeah, going back to like, eating out. People are lazy, and they get lazy because they're tired. So it's like a downward spiral. You're gonna get fast food because you're freaking lazy and you're tired because you have no nutrients coming in because you're eating the shit fast food all the time. Rather than stopping twice a week, maybe, and making some meals. And it doesn't have to be like you need to eat 6 meals a day like some bodybuilder. You could do like 3, maybe 2 even, and add a couple protein shakes just to keep it simple for you. Maybe buy a non-fat Greek yogurt. You throw a little bit of whey in that, mix it up, so it has a little bit of flavor. It's something that is simple. Like, that's very, very cost effective, but you just have to figure it out. You have to like take ownership of your health. And if you can't figure it out yourself, you can hire a coach. There's plenty of them out there, and it's like, it's a game changer for people, right? Because once they get that portion of their life in control, they can get a lot of other portions of their life control.
For sure. So as we wrap this podcast up, Matt, what do you have a passion for?
Passion for helping like dudes, that are basically get to that point where they're like 30 to 50 years old, and they're like, looking down, they're like, damn, I got a big old belly now, and I used to have like 6-pack, and I used to, be a fit guy, and I don't even know where to go from here. People that want to get better but just don't know how to get better, helping those guys, take it to the next level, get the best of them, the best version of themselves. Because it sucks not to be firing on all cylinders, really. And going back to real quickly to the analogy of the construction site and the food and lumber, then you have hormones too, and that's something we is very important nowadays. Is talking about hormonal balance and what you have on board there, because a lot of times you'll get on a good track and you'll get all the lumber coming in, but things aren't happening like it's supposed to be, and then that's where you have to look at your hormones, right? Your testosterone, your estrogen, your cortisol, your insulin, looking at your blood sugars, things like that. So those are things important too, and those are where it helps to have a coach too. If you're doing the right things and you're stalled out.
Well, I love that analogy of contractor, house construction, because I tell my patients about that. you can have all the right structure, i.e. the right proteins and things like that. But if you don't have the contractor directing where everything goes, and the contractor is hormones, including testosterone, but it goes both ways. You can't have just testosterone and not have the building blocks, not have the wood to build the house, and it's going to work. So you still need to eat well, whether you're on hormones or not. And of course, you alluded to that.
True. But the hormones are mandatory. So if you have a improper hormonal environment and you do all the right stuff, it won't happen. But if you have like a super psychological hormone environment and you do the wrong stuff, things still will happen. Like, I'm not saying it's the right way to do things. I'm just saying, like, you'll have a lot more of the workers on the job site that are,
For sure.
So that's not where you need to be. You need to be optimizing. I believe guys need to optimize their hormones, talk to doctors, look at HRT, look at those things like that, so optimize their hormones, so they get to a more youthful state. Nothing that's like off the charts, but yes, definitely. I think hormones, they can be a more of a, what's the word I'm looking for here? They have more of an impact, per se, like as far as
right. Well, and because for one thing, not everybody most people don't, as they get older, especially, don't have enough hormones. But let's face it, in America, most of us have enough food. Basically we're we're probably overfed, maybe undernourished, but overfed. So you're right. The hormone balance thing is very, very important. So Matt, as we wrap this podcast up, is Instagram the best way to get a hold of you if anybody has any questions for you?
Yeah, that is the best way.
So here's your Instagram page. Matt, I really appreciate you being on today. Our goal of this podcast is to educate and empower individuals to take charge of their own health, and you've helped us realize that goal. So I really, really appreciate you being on, Matt. Thank you so much for, inspiring others, being a role model for your kids, and just telling the truth about dad bods and obesity. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Shawn. Sorry.
You're welcome. I get that a lot. Even people that don't know I have a twin brother, I get that a lot. So.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. It's the weirdest thing. People that don't even know I have a twin brother will call me Shane. It's weird. And he's been called Shawn.
Now for 2 years, I've been working with your brother, so it's like, So.
Yeah, he's got a lot of good things to say about you. So thank you, Matt.
Cool.
And thank you, listeners and viewers, for tuning in to Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham. Monday, we are working on getting Jennifer Say. Jennifer Say was the second in command at Levi Strauss & Company down in San Francisco, and she got fired for basically telling the truth about kids not being able to go to school and the government locking down schools and not letting kids go to school. So we're going to have Jennifer Say on our podcast Monday. I don't know the time yet, but tune in to Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham to find out more. Thank you for tuning in.